Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into the U.S.-China trade relationship. It's always evolving, right?
Always, yeah.
And specifically, we're looking at some recent comments from former President Trump about tariffs.
Right. There's been a bit of buzz around that. Our main source here is an analysis from the Tom Bilyeu Show called Trump's Tariff Retreat and the Hidden Strategy.
Exactly. And the big question we're trying to unpack is, well, is Trump softening his stance on tariffs? Is it, a strategic thing? Or maybe a sign that the first approach didn't quite work out? Or something else entirely? Let's dive in.
Sounds good. This relationship, U.S.-China trade, it impacts pretty much everyone globally. So understanding these shifts is, well, it's important.
Okay, so let's start with the narrative itself. The article kicks off by reminding us about Trump talking pretty loudly before about a massive 145% tariff. That's a huge number.
Oh, yeah, that definitely got attention.
But now, more recently, his comments suggest, well, maybe that's not happening. He's acknowledged it's unlikely, right?
That's what the article points out, this shift from that really high number to something more recent, where he's saying tariffs, if they come, might not be so extreme.
And maybe temporary, linked to other things.
Yeah, possibly temporary, maybe tied to like fentanyl sanctions or other specific issues. But, and this is key, the analysis notes, he still hammers that point about the U.S. being taken for a ride by China in the past.
Right, that theme keeps popping up. So, okay, is this a real change or is it strategy? This is where the article brings up strategic chaos. What's that about?
Well, the idea of strategic chaos, and they link it back to his book, The Art of the Deal, is basically creating confusion, making things seem unpredictable.
Okay.
The thinking is, if you make things chaotic, then when you offer a more structured solution later, it seems much more appealing, like a relief.
So start extreme, then pull back, and the pullback looks like a big concession.
Exactly. It's a negotiation tactic, potentially. You create instability to make stability look good. The article uses that phrase, sowing chaos, so that structure feels like a relief.
That's a powerful image. It does sound like a possible playbook, but the article also asks, is it really a planned strategy?
Right. Or is it more of a reaction? Maybe a reaction to some negative consequences.
Yeah, because there were consequences, weren't there? What did the markets do, for example?
Oh, absolutely. The article highlights that. When this tariffs talk flared up again, you saw nervousness in the stock market, and Treasury yields actually dropped.
Which usually means investors are getting worried, looking for safety.
Precisely. It suggests increased economic uncertainty, which a big trade fight would definitely stir up. And it wasn't just markets. Globally, other leaders expressed concern.
And other countries started doing their own thing with China.
Yeah, that's interesting, too. The analysis mentions countries like Vietnam, South Korea, Japan. They seem to be actively engaging with China independently, perhaps trying to, hedge their bets or find ways around potential U.S. trade volatility.
So they're not just waiting for the U.S. and China to sort it out. They're making their own moves.
Seems like it. Which leads to China's side of things. Are they, rushing back to the negotiating table with the U.S.?
The article suggests not really.
Not at all, according to this analysis. In fact, they're busy with that diplomacy. You mentioned Vietnam, South Korea, Japan. Beijing's even said publicly no talks are happening right now.
And they put the ball in the U.S.'s court.
Yeah, they've apparently said the U.S. needs to initiate any future talks. It really underscores their position of not wanting to look like they're bending under pressure. It's about face.
Ah, right. The concept of face maintaining prestige and honor, super important in their culture and diplomacy. Losing face is a big deal.
A very big deal. It can completely stall negotiations. Neither side wants to appear weak.
Which brings us perfectly to this idea of an off-ramp. The article really emphasizes this. What exactly is an off-ramp in this kind of negotiation?
An off-ramp is basically a way out, a path for both sides to de-escalate, to step back from their really hardline positions without losing face, without looking weak.
So a way to reach a deal where everyone can claim some kind of win or at least not a total loss.
Exactly. It's about creating that pathway. The article argues that without a clear off-ramp, getting any deal done is really, really difficult. It could just prevent progress entirely.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just about the numbers, it's the politics, the perception.
Yeah, and the article even briefly draws a parallel to other conflicts like Russia-Ukraine, where finding acceptable off-ramps has been a major challenge for de-escalation.
Okay. Now, the article also touches on something internal within Trump's advisors, a Besant versus Elon reference. What's the takeaway there?
It's mentioned very briefly, without much detail, but the implication seems to be that there might be conflicting advice or different viewpoints within his own camp.
So maybe not everyone is on the exact same page regarding strategy.
Possibly, it could contribute to the, let's say, unpredictable nature of the messaging coming out, a sign of potential internal debate or inconsistency.
So it's a complex picture, international reactions, internal dynamics, negotiation tactics. What's the kind of overall strategic insight the article leaves us with?
I think the main thrust is that this whole U.S.-China trade situation is just as much about psychology and, well, performance as it is about pure economics.
Like a high-stakes poker game. Bluffs and
Right.
reading tells.
Kind of, yeah. There's an element of potential bluffing, carefully worded statements for public consumption, trying to shape perceptions. But, and this is crucial, the real test is whether any of this translates into actual tangible progress, diplomatic progress, economic progress.
Otherwise, it's just talk.
Right. Without real behind-the-scenes discussion and a clear path forward, the article suggests a lot of this could just be, quote, performative posturing.
That's a sobering thought. And that brings us to that quote you highlighted earlier, which really stuck with me too. If you don't give them an off-ramp, they're not going to take it. Why is that so fundamental here?
It really cuts to the core, doesn't it? It highlights that human element. Even if a deal looks okay on paper, if accepting it means public humiliation or losing prestige, losing face leaders or nations are just much less likely to go for it.
So you have to build that escape hatch, that way for them to retreat gracefully.
Exactly. Providing that off-ramp, that way to step back without feeling defeated, is often absolutely essential to actually resolving things, especially in these really tense international situations. It's about understanding the psychology, not just the economics.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've looked at whether Trump's tariff talk is a strategic shift, maybe a reaction, or perhaps just his usual negotiation style.
And we've seen how markets reacted, how other countries are maneuvering, and China's own stance emphasizing face and waiting for the U.S. to make the first move towards talks.
Plus the critical need for those off-ramps, those ways to de-escalate without losing standing.
Absolutely vital.
So the final thought we want to leave you with is this. Really think about that interplay. The mix of hard economic strategy and, well, the psychological game being played on the world stage. What does this analysis suggest for the future of U.S.-China trade? And maybe more broadly, what unseen ripple effects could these high-stakes moves have globally? Definitely something to keep an eye on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.